Welcome everybody to our distance learning series. Your Office of Indian Education Technical Assistance team is here. We're going to give it maybe just one more minute before we go ahead and get started while everyone gets in, gets connected, and gets settled in for today's session. Right. So welcome today. Thank you for joining us. We may just have a small group today, which means you get some extra special personalized focused attention for your technical experience, technical assistance experience today. Welcome to the Office of Indian Education's Distance Learning Series. Today, our focus is student engagement, and we're so glad that you took the time today to join us for today's session. Before we get started, we'll go ahead and run our standard disclaimer.
This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
All right, thank you. Now that we've had our standard disclaimer, I'll go ahead and introduce myself as Tracy Madej Karageorge, as one of your members of the technical assistance team and facilitator for today. And I'm joined by my colleague, Olani Lilly.
Aloha.
Who will also be co-facilitating today's session and is a member of your technical assistance team. So if you're just joining us today, here is a look at our objectives for today's session focused on student engagement in virtual settings. No doubt engaging learners of all ages, young learners as well as adults, is relevant both now as we've been working in this virtual environment, but will continue to be something that we attend to as we plan for summer activities and move forward with online strategies in the future. Whether it's virtual or hybrid environments. So for our objectives today, we will explore strategies for increasing student engagement in a virtual learning environment. We're going to do this by addressing two important aspects of learning, effective interactions and student choice, and how we can use those to promote student engagement in an online environment. And then we'll demonstrate five online tools and articulate connections to those aspects of choice and effective interactions. So first a couple of questions here to kind of get your input and your thinking as we get started today. And you can type your responses into the chat box if you like, or we're a small enough group if you want to take yourself off mute and respond to these verbally. We welcome your input that way. But when you think of student engagement, what does that look like or sound like and feel like in a face-to-face environment? What kinds of things or describing words does that make you think of? So you've got more people coming in to join us, and that's awesome. We're just starting off with a little reflective question about what does student engagement look like, sound like, and feel like in face-to-face environments? Any thoughts there? Thank you. I see we have interactive. Anybody else have some describing words they want to share? Lively discussions. Thank you. Thank you.
So asking questions and communicating.
Asking questions, communicating. I like it. Yep. Any others there? Thank you for typing in the chat box and taking yourself off mute to engage. Attentive. Thank you, Patricia. Very good. How about now shifting our thoughts to what student engagement looks like, sounds like, and feels like in an online environment? What kinds of describing words come to mind when you think of student engagement? The thumbs up, there you go. Okay, those visual cues, very good. If you want to use those visual cues that Laura brings up, you can look down at the bottom of your screen. You should see a little button that has reactions. Yeah, I see Rena found the thumbs up button. There we go. Patricia says video on. Okay, it can look that way as well. So maybe you're seeing each other. Anything else? You know, I actually think that some of the words that you used even to describe that engagement in a face-to-face environment are somewhat similar to what I think of when I think of student engagement in online. Similar to things you brought up, responding to questions or talking with others, asking questions, those lively discussions, manipulating some tools perhaps. Some potential differences could be that, you know, we might not see each other while we're engaging in online unless we have our videos on or unless we establish that as a specific norm. Another difference is that sometimes students can be engaged, but it may be asynchronously or maybe not at the same time, right? They might be engaging in similar activities, but at different times of the day or throughout the course. Very good. Well, on the next slide, we actually have a little bit of a graphic to show how our objectives fit together and will flow throughout today. So I'll begin by describing how some researchers are thinking about effective interactions, the kind that promote student engagement in virtual environments. And then Alani is going to explain what we really mean when we talk about student choice. And then she'll move to demonstrate some online tools and really illustrate how we can use those tools to incorporate student choice while I try to highlight those connections about what effective interactions might look like in each of her examples. You might call this our mini logic model for our session today. It kind of shows how we bring these aspects together to create high levels of student engagement. So let's begin first with effective interactions. Now, on the screen, you see a grid with a bunch of emojis, and I'm going to ask you to engage once again by using the annotation tools. And if you're not familiar where to find those, you are just going to look right at the top of your screen where it says you are viewing Alani Lily's screen, and you'll have right to the right of that, you'll see that option. It says view options with the drop down menu. And if you scroll down that little drop down menu, you'll see an option that says annotate. And with that tool, you can actually make a mark on the screen. So what I'd like you to do is just take a minute, maybe take a deep breath and reflect on your current state of mind. How are you feeling right in this moment? And which emoji would you pick to represent that particular feeling or emotion? And maybe you have more than one, and that's okay. That's okay too. But go ahead and make a mark, whether it's a stamp or I see a circle going up there. Make a mark on the screen next to the emoji that best represents your current feeling or emotion. I see most folks are finding those annotation tools. That's awesome. We've got some smileys. We've got some emojis with their tongues out. Okay. Any others? Little heart there next to the smiley face. If you're having trouble with the annotation tools, you can also type the emoji coordinates into the chat box or even private message me if you didn't want to out yourself in your emoji, and I can make the mark on screen for you. Oh, thank you, Rena. Rena's feeling blessed. Very good. I usually associate that with the emoji at D3, but maybe you had another one in mind. I see another heart going up around the sunglasses. Hopefully that means you're getting some sunshine where you are. I appreciate that. Very good. Well, thank you for participating in this little exercise. I'll leave this up here for a minute while I kind of explain the purpose behind it. You know, this activity kind of effectively serves as like an emotional temperature check of the audience right now. It gives me, the facilitator, or it could give you as a teacher, a little bit of insight or a better sense of the social emotional state of your learners. And we know that that social emotional state is so important with being able to effectively engage and absorb with new information, or in a class, and absorb and retain that new information. I can use this information now to either make some adjustments to my instructional plan, or maybe my talking points and how I'm framing those messages. So for example, if I was doing this with some elementary students and I saw a lot of sad or mad emojis, I might take a minute to either talk about what folks are feeling, you know, my kiddos are feeling, or maybe take a minute to do some deep breathing, right? And help my students kind of get centered and settle in and be able to focus a little bit. If I saw a lot of like tired or sleepy emojis, I might want to quicken my pace or liven my tone a little bit, just to respond to those social emotional needs of my students. It really just gives me, and perhaps you, if you're the leader or facilitator, a little bit of information about the emotional state of your community. As I said, a factor that research is acknowledging as really important for fostering student engagement in virtual environments. In fact, the research might validate what you have felt, you know, intuitively as a teacher or a leader, or known on an intellectual level, that in those emotional connections between teachers and students, as well as amongst students, is really a key ingredient for fueling those interactions that lead to student engagement. So I'm going to go ahead and clear these drawings. Thank you for participating in that. And then we can move on and start talking a little bit more in depth about this framework and the research around what they call social presence. So this research that I'm going to share with you comes from the Regional Educational Laboratory System, or it's called a REL for short, REL. It's a system or a network really of 10 regional educational labs that are funded by the US Department of Education under the Institute of Educational Sciences. So each of the RELs serves a specific set of states and territories. So for example, there's a REL Southwest and a REL Southeast and a REL Central, a REL Midwest. You get the idea. The mission of the REL system is really to bring, to identify, conduct, and bring to the education field the most rigorous research available, and then help educators apply that rigorous research to practice. So recently, the REL Southeast released this infographic with a social presence framework, and there's a screenshot of it up on the screen right now, and I see it's also in the chat box if you want to download it directly and revisit it later. The infographic includes little recorded snippets of interviews between the researchers and some folks and the REL Southeast folks, and the researchers who are studying engagement in virtual settings. So this term social presence is what the researchers are using to describe those emotional attachments that play a role whenever students and teachers are working together in both, you know, in person as well as in online environments. Some of the key concepts and theories underpinning social presence include human connectedness, the relationships, engagement, a sense of belonging, and kindness and compassion. So this research has been driven more recently by the growth of online learning and really the need to understand how to foster social presence when teachers and students are physically not together, and they could be actually fairly distant from one another. This framework is based on some case study research over the past couple of decades in the context of both online and blended courses. So online courses and courses that use a mix of virtual and in-person settings. The researchers have been working to build and test this framework for increasing student engagement with connections to strategies that we can use, again, face-to-face or in virtual environment. So I'm going to share some elements of this framework and offer some ideas and examples of how each of the elements look. Some of the examples come from the infographic itself. Others come from our experience and observations that more specific to your settings. Please feel free to also share in the chat box too if you have other examples or questions along the way. Throughout the session, though, I just want to clarify terms too. Throughout the session, I will use the term effective interactions really to refer collectively to the kinds of interactions described in this framework. Okay, so the first element of this framework is instructor involvement, excuse me, and the choices that you make as the teacher or leader that really influence how the learner, how strong or how the opportunities to develop connectedness to the material as well as to others. Interaction intensity is about the frequency and the level of interaction amongst your learners. We'll talk more about that. Affective association is about how and when emotional connections can really be important for student engagement. And community cohesion in this framework refers to the norms, processes, the expectations for how we interact in the community. And knowledge and experience specifically is about the knowledge and experience that your students are bringing to the classroom. So let's get into each of these a bit more in depth. As I mentioned, the teacher or leader is really regarded as one of those most important influences on a learner's classroom experience, virtually and in person. And the choices that you make around the kinds of activities that you're going to use and the content that you use will really influence the learner's connectedness to the material as well as to each other. But you have the power to influence the types of opportunities to make those connections, whether that's amongst the learners or connecting learning to the home or the home environment, as well as the school and emotional life of the learner. So important ways that you as a leader can foster that social presence are by making sure to address any student difficulties that they might be experience, and that could be technical difficulties or learning difficulties. Providing regular and timely feedback. So maybe it's letting individuals know how well they're meeting expectations, or maybe it's giving feedback to the class or participants as a whole. It's really, nice to see all of you here today and engaged and participating and posting questions in the chat. Fostering those connections to the material by connecting it to things that are familiar to them, things in the home, or maybe you're connecting the content of your sessions to specific school needs or requirements, or perhaps to the social emotional life of your learners. And allowing choice. Being deliberate and incorporating choice is another way to foster engagement, and we'll talk more about that later. Interaction intensity is about the frequency and the level of interaction amongst learners. When your students have the opportunities to interact with each other, it helps them to build connections with each other, increases those feelings of belongingness and community. So the way we can do that, and maybe you have other examples too to share in the chat, is acknowledging those desirable behaviors, interactions. Thank you for coming off mute and sharing your thoughts. Being specific in your acknowledgments, that is stating specifically what it is that your learners did well. Helping students understand and take responsibility for interacting with each other and helping each other, modeling kindness and compassion in your own words and actions. Reaching out to students who participate less. So maybe you have a reluctant student or someone who doesn't share quite as much. Maybe you can send them a private chat message or a personal email, sort of encouraging them, or maybe checking in on them, making sure that everything's okay and they feel comfortable. I've observed some teachers who will use a specific cue. So when they're on screen, they might pull an ear or scratch their head as a specific cue with a student. Maybe they've worked this out with a student ahead of time. When I pull my ear, that means I'm going to call on you, so that they're ready and prepared and they feel more comfortable in interacting with their answering questions and having that kind of an interaction. But using a variety of interaction types, whole group as well as small group, maybe using the breakout room features for some small group discussions, perhaps using an online tool so that students can post and respond to each other, or other ways to vary that instruction interaction intensity. And yes, we will definitely share our slides after today. And then the recording will be available eventually as well, once that is all set. Next, we come to affective association. So there's a saying that students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Using a positive affect in your interactions can really help people to feel comfortable, feel connected, and foster that sense of belongingness. Appropriate It's okay to be human. Appropriate self-disclosures and displays of emotions and humor can all help build that connection with your learners, because when your learners feel more connected to the community and the people in the class, including the teacher, they grow more invested in the content and they're more likely to engage. Any students specific needs for that kind of personal connection can differ at different points in the class, but it can be especially important to make those connections at the start or even before a class session begins. So this might take the form of sending a personalized message. Maybe it's email, maybe it's a voicemail, or providing an opportunity to make connections with each other before a group comes together online. So for example, I recently used Jamboard, which is a free Google tool, and asked a group of adult learners who don't already work together to post introductory notes and pictures of their local area as a way to introduce themselves before we came together as a group. To help build connections and build that sense of community. Maybe you can create a brief introductory video for you, and then the kiddos can post their own introductory video using a different online tool. Sharing your relevant experiences with learners like I just did, and taking an interest in the lives of your students and really getting to know your students will also help build those connections. It can also give you some insight into understanding your students' motivations, right? That can help you build connections and give you some insight down the road if your students are struggling, whether it's an academic struggle or a motivational struggle. Understanding where they're coming from can be very helpful for building that sense of connectedness and community. And then that positive affect can also be expressed not just through verbal language, but also through paralanguage, like the use of all caps or emojis in your messaging, maybe using GIFs or memes in a virtual setting. are all part of this particular category of interactions. Then we come to community cohesion. As I said, community cohesion really refers to those norms, those expectations and processes that serve to create and sustain the kind of community and the climate that you want to foster in your learning community. It will be necessary to really define those, to describe what they look like, and make them explicit. You can review them, and it's important to model them and revisit them periodically. Perhaps reinforce them by praising when you see students modeling those things. And also the flip side of that, intervening if you see that students aren't following the norms or aren't following those expectations and processes. Within this category of effective interactions, we also think about using names as a ways to make things personal and to always remain approachable, even when you have those students who have lots and lots of questions and maybe have to be reminded of things more than once or twice. And then we come back around to that knowledge and experience that your students bring to class, that your learners bring to class. Their knowledge and experience is really an asset that can enrich the learning community and enhance that overall experience for everybody. So infusing your sessions with deliberate opportunities and activities for learners to learn more about each other, as well as share their own experiences, is important. And along with that is encouraging, along with the idea of encouraging students to share their experience, is helping them to recognize that their own knowledge and experience is an asset and a foundation on which they can build, really fostering that growth mindset. Along with fostering that growth mindset, we think about things like praising effort. I can tell you worked so hard on that video. It really turned out great. I can tell you put a lot of time into making that video, as opposed to abilities or traits. Um, you're so talented. praising the effort instead of the trait is how we can help foster that growth mindset. But also helping students to recognize their own knowledge and accomplishments as something that they can build on. So that was an overview of the framework around social presence, or fostering those effective interactions that really lead to those relationships that foster online student engagement. Any questions about any of these?
I don't see anything in the chat.
Okay.
But again, as we go through, if you want to post your questions, go ahead and we'll make sure we take time to answer them. Thanks, Tracy. That was a really great overview and more digging into effective interactions. I know my daughter's been on online school. She's a sophomore for the last year and a half. And when I ask her, about the classes that she really likes, it really is that teachers are showing her that they care about her as an individual and are actually using some of these strategies in their classroom that makes her experience more successful. So thanks for sharing that. We're going to sort of take we're going to look at our second circle around student choice. When we think back to maybe our preschool, some of you might be actually working in preschool classrooms or kindergarten classrooms. A lot of times we think of those different learning stations. Maybe one station is where the teacher and the instructor is, where they're teaching a small group of students new skills. But the other learning station, students are able to choose to go to these various stations and practice the skills that they've been previously taught. When we did that live, there was a way more openness and ability to do student choice. As the pandemic hit and we all scurried to get online, a lot of that was a lot of our beginning work was just about figuring out how to do this and how to engage and interact with students and how to get our lessons all online. Now we're at a place where we can kind of look at how do we dig a little bit deeper and look at how we can maybe infuse or reinfuse student choice into the online virtual platform and experience. And so that's what we're going to be looking at now and the different aspects of student choice. So when I talk about student choice, we're really looking at four areas. One is the choice around general learning choices. So for example, students being able to choose maybe a writing prompt or a math problems, a selection that a teacher would give. Maybe the teacher creates a list of writing prompts that are focused on maybe a book that they're reading, and a student actually gets to select from those writing prompts. The other one is, at maybe a higher level, is to really for students to choose learning targets that they want to focus in on and the activities that go around along supporting those learning targets. And then the third, again, is an even higher level where students are actually looking at maybe it's learning targets or standards, and they're creating their own goals around those targets and actually identifying ways in which they're going to be learning and demonstrating their knowledge in those areas. The second area is really around resources and being able to provide choices in resources. And so one of them can be like direct instructor delivery of content and skill building. The other one can be that the instructor actually curates a resource list that may include research from a university or a reading or maybe a video. Some people use Khan. There's a lot of resources out there. And so the instructor may actually create a resource list that will help the student achieve their the learning targets. The other thing is that students can actually create a resource list. So if you are, maybe students are working on a project, students that are working in a small group can go ahead and create their own curated resource list for them to access in order to gain more information and instruction. And then the other area of choice is providing choice around how students demonstrate their mastery. And so of content. And so that could be that the instructor provides a menu of options, which can include a research paper, worksheets, maybe a PowerPoint, a video, podcast, ebook. The other thing is that students can go ahead and select a method that they would want, that they feel best demonstrates that they have mastered the content and the skill. And then the final area is around assessment choices, providing students the ability to do both self-reflection, maybe engage their peers for some feedback, also performance-based assessment, where they might be working, like again, on a project and maybe talking with their authentic audience. The sort of best one I think that comes to mind is like around science fair, where students work on a science project and then they present that to scientists that come through and look at all the different projects. The scientists are the actual authentic audience, but maybe you're actually have a project that's community based, and it would be the people that would be affected by the sort of fruits of this project. And so that would be another authentic audience that could provide feedback on and be seen as an assessment, as well as students being able to put together a digital portfolio would provide students the option to choose from their work what best sort of exemplifies their mastery of content. And so those are all areas when I talk about choice that we can look at. And so when we talk about student learning and content choices, here's an example of what you could provide to a student as far as they're being able to choose their learning target. And again, what is playing out in my mind is sort of like a preschool classroom where you have different learning centers. And so really think of the learning targets like you're setting that up, and that might be in breakout groups, or it might be that you would create an actual classroom specific to those different learning targets. And so in this example, for younger students, they might be able to choose from three of these, one of these learning targets that they feel like they haven't mastered. And what you can see in the second column is a teacher curated resource list that would have links connecting to a color song with a video, maybe a color chart. I'm really thinking in terms of a native language classroom where they are learning native language terms for both sizes and shapes and colors. The second learning target is about their genealogy. So again, it could be an interview sheet for family interviews. And also maybe I would include a link to a genealogical chart that is a model. Um, and then we could look at students identifying wind, rain, and water sources and mountains in their community. A couple of sessions back, we looked at Google Earth for virtual field trips, but you could utilize that for students to be able to access their community and see what it looks like from, from the heavens down and also at ground level. And also, I might include in the resources a curated video on Hilo place names, which is my community. And then I give students a choice in their products or how they want to demonstrate their learning. So either by creating a blog, maybe a family and students video, maybe creating a book creator, and we'll get into some of those tools later on. Or hey, what about just your regular old show and tell? Kids love to do show and tell. So you could do it as a slideshow for them to demonstrate their knowledge of the wind and the rain and the water sources in their community. Again, who doesn't love a great show and tell? Now, for a secondary learner, this is sort of the thinking in terms of maybe your project based. And so I would have a project focused on an actual fish pond, and I could divide up into breakout groups on Zoom, students interested in maybe some wanting to work on more of a math problem, while some others maybe wanting to work on more of a historical research based project problem. And so then I would create these resources and curate this list. Mapping sites on YouTube, Khan Academy, maybe even their math book that they're using at home is another curated resource. On the second one, the second learning target is fish pond research video interview. Again, because I would be dealing with older students, I might actually want them to go ahead and curate their own resources. And then you can see the products. Now, again, because these are older students, you can go a little bit deeper. Maybe they're creating a blog on the math at the fish pond. Again, looking at Google Earth and maybe mapping out and doing a tour utilizing Google Earth or their digital portfolio. Again, giving them a choice um, to be able to maybe even come up with a comic portraying their fish pond. So this is all examples of choices as it relates to learning targets and content, as well as resources. All right, so that's some ideas. And now, like, what are the tools out there that I can actually access in order to engage in these areas of choice and provide more choice in my classroom? So we'll be going through some online tools. I just want to remind you that all of these tools are free. They definitely have some of them have paid versions, but what I'm going to be highlighting is the free version. And so when we look at curating and developing resources, that can be a little daunting. I know when we go online and you're looking up something, you want to like be able to put it someplace so that you can remember to access. And so I know a lot of you are using Google Classroom, and so I looked at Google as an option. There is Google Keep, and what Google Keep is it allows instructor and students to curate lists of resources. If you have the app on your phone, you can actually capture ideas with your voice. You can add images, create a to-do list, and also create, share, and collaborate on other notes. So let's go ahead and look at this system and how easy it is to create a resource list. Okay, so here I am in my regular old Google. I'm gonna come up to the upper right-hand side and click on my waffle, my Google waffle, or a Chrome waffle, and I'm gonna scroll down until I see Google Keep. Click here, and as you can see, I've already started to curate some resources. What I first want to do, if I'm just setting this up, is I want to come to this little pencil here, and I first want to create my labels. So as you can see, I have some labels already here: geometry, language arts, living lo'i, and podcast creation. I can go ahead and, if I'm doing project based, which is my living lo'i project, I can go ahead and create notes and curate that. So I've done that already. So now I'm going out on the web, researching and thinking about my project and what kind of resources. I found this really great resource for Taro or Kalo that I want to my students in my Living Lo'i project to connect to. So I go ahead and copy the URL, and I come back to my Google Keep. Here I am in my take a note, and I just paste it right here, and it shows up right there. And now what I want to do is, and you can see this little sort of icon pops up so I can remember where it came from, which is a really helpful tool. When I come down to these three dots more, I want to go ahead and add my label. When I add my label, I'm going to click the Living Lo'i. That helps to organize all of these resources. Now, again, Google Keep really helps to curate and organize the resources. It's a lot like if you've ever seen like Evernote or maybe even a little bit of Pinterest. It's a lot like that. Now, as you can see, I could be creating a lot of notes, and so I want to just be able to look at it visually at, real quick capture and see what notes I want to look at. So I'm going to add a color. And as you can see, my Living Lo'i project is purple. So I'm going to go ahead and color this purple. I can also click here on the collaborator. And this is how I can share that notes with the students in that project group. Also, if this project group has a Google Classroom, I can connect there as well. And this way, students can actually also connect into that label and be able to also curate their own resource list. Additionally, I can put in a reminder, like remind me, I want to make sure that the students are checking in, and I can check a time and a date as well. Now, once I start getting a pretty substantial list, I may want to have some things that don't. So what happens is on this bottom portion, as you add, things move down. And so I don't want this one that I just created, this note, to get lost in all of that. So I'm going to click on pin note. And what happens is it gets pinned up to the top. And so this does not move, and it'll always be here at the top unless I go ahead and unpin it. Okay, so that is Google Keeps. Again, a really helpful resource. Tracy, any ideas on how this could be used to create effective interactions or
I do.
support
I
that?
was just actually getting ready to post in the chat box, and I still will, but um, it seems like a really great way for students to both share some of their knowledge, right? Um, and it also seems that it's instructor involvement in the form of support for using the tool, getting to know some of the features that you just highlighted, and maybe even feedback on the work that they're doing in there can be really important for fostering that sense of belonging.
Awesome, thanks. Again, so Google Keep is a tool to use in order to curate resources and provide students options as far as the resources. So now we're going to move into some online tools that can assist with students demonstrating their knowledge that they've acquired and the skills. So the first one I want to look at is Book Creator. It allows learners to create, you can see books, digital portfolios, science reports, instruction manuals, comics, interactive stories. It utilizes text, images, audio, and video. So really robust, even on the free end tool. What I liked about this was, I know some of you out there are working in with younger students. And so I like the ease of this tool for younger learners and also for families, and in particular, thinking about native language programs. So let's go ahead and look at Book Creator. It's way fun. It also is a way for students to really be curators of information and actual content. And so you can go ahead and create a teacher dashboard. You log in, create your teacher dashboard. Again, this is free version. You have different libraries. I've created this library. You can see all the different books I was practicing on. Um, let's see. Let's go ahead and create a new book. So I would come up here and click on new book. Now you can see I get sort of the blank book templates, or you can come here and look at all of the different ranges of templates, newspapers, photo books, all of these different choices um, that I kind of talked about at the beginning about what uh, this program can create. But I want to use blank books. And so the tools that I would be using is that I would ask students to go home. And this is what we're going to call green in my backyard and shapes in my backyard. And so I would like them to go home and with their parents' smartphone, go around their backyard and take pictures of different shapes that are green. Or it could be in their community, and it will be a native language book, and so they will be putting this into their native language. So I'm gonna select the template of square, come right here. And so I've already had, maybe they're doing this at home as homework, or maybe the parents have taken the pictures and have uploaded it into their Google Classroom file or Drive. And so I want to come here and I'm going to click on the upper right hand, this plus sign. And I want to go ahead and access the pictures. I'm going to come to files. So you can see, you can look at maps, files, or even in your Drive and embed as well. But because these are our younger guys, we're just going to take pictures. So this is the picture I want. It's going to load. There we go. So I want to make this smaller. This is my cover of my book. Click here. Now I want to go ahead and add some text. All right. Here's my title. I'm going to ooch it down. Now the free version, unfortunately, doesn't have a lot of fancy bells and whistles as far as formatting goes, but it looks nice. I think it's great for a beginning book. So there's my cover. Now I want to move in and I want to get into the text. I'm going to go back up, grab another picture, back to my same file, come here, and I'm going to go ahead and upload that picture. This is a sweet potato leaf that's actually growing in my backyard. Oopsie. And I want to add text. So this I'm going to put in Hawaiian. So he walalau kia, he lau. Okay. And I go here. And I'm going to move the text down here. Now this is a great, again, tool to use, because then you can come here and I want to record the actual text. So I'm going to press record, press start recording. He uala lau kia, he lau o ma'umau oya. Stop recording. Let's listen. Oh, sorry, I pressed use recording. So here we go. We'll listen to it. He uala lau kia, he lau o ma'umau oya. Oh, sorry. Okay, so again, really great tool when you're doing native language. A great way for you to actually hear your student read back to you what they've actually written. Great for younger learners. So I finished my book. Let me go back. Sorry, I clicked too fast. I finished this book. I want to come up here and I want to go ahead and publish it. I come to this little share icon. And there's three ways in which I can publish it. I can publish it online. which means it goes into the teacher's library. You can also, by doing this, you can create a link. So let's just put my backyard, publish the book. I can read online. I can also stop publishing, or I can copy right here and share the link. So I might want to share this link with other students so that they can read it, or share it back to the family so that they can read it at home. Students love to hear, especially the little guys, they love to hear their voices read a book, and it seems very fancy to them. The other way I can share it is by downloading it as an ebook, which, as you can see, comes down here. And I can e-publish that book. Also, I can print it out. I can also create it as a PDF, which would be a great tool if I was going to have these students put together a digital portfolio, for them to add this link in here. That's book creator. Hey Tracy, what do you think about any kind of interaction, and how that creates some effective interactions?
Another great tool that can provide students an opportunity to share their knowledge and experience. And as with the previous tool, as well, instructor involvement can be important, maybe for understanding how to use the tool. And to that end, I was thinking even a brief video tutorial to demonstrate some key um, 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 how to get started with the tool might be helpful. I know I've done that even with some of my older learners as well.
That's a great idea. I love that. I should have done that when I was putting it together. I'll do that next time. Okay, great. Now we're sort of moving into some work for maybe older students, but even I've seen a lot of blogs with younger students as well. And so we're going to look at EduBlogs. Again, free version. EduBlogs allows you to create a classroom or individual student blogs. What's great about it is it's WordPress, but it provides the ability to make classrooms, which allows teachers to manage and monitor content being put up by students. And so that's an added plus as far as WordPress. So if you're familiar with WordPress, EduBlogs is a really great tool to use. It helps you, like I said, easily manage groups of learners. It helps to keep students safe through content filters and moderation options, and also provides the teacher ability to provide and deliver private feedback. So let's go check out EduBlogs. Okay, so here we are at our EduBlogs. I've gone ahead and created my login. Now I want to go ahead and create a class. So either I can, this would be for students, they could join a class, or maybe a class was already created, but I want to show you how you can create a class. Okay, so this is a class blog, and so I want to check that. And this is basically if you want students to have their own blogs, or if you want students to publish posts on the classroom blog. I'm going to go ahead and click that. Now, this is where we get into sort of how you are moderating the blog. And so I would click allow students to post on the class blog. No, use if only. So you click no if you only want to use this for them to publish posts to their own student blog. Yes, I'm going to click the middle one because I want to do some moderation and be able to submit post pending. So what's going to happen is the students will post something and it will go pending, and I will be able to review the post before it actually goes live. Also, as it relates to further student moderation, that I can say I must approve all comments. I want to make sure I do that again to make sure everything is safe, that there is appropriate language, and that students are doing this really correctly. I can look at different privacy options. And so this is really what gets out into the world. And so I can discourage search engines from indexing this site. I can use only registered users. Only registered users of the site can view it. Only someone who provides the following password. And so I'm going to do sort of this one right here because I want to be able to have users and register them, but that they can look at this site. All right, so that's how I would go ahead and create, because I'm the only teacher, I don't need teachers, but that's how I would create a classroom. And I'm gonna go ahead and save this. Takes a little bit. Okay, so once I press save, you'll notice that my class, this menu sort of expanded. And so I'm able to now look at how I want to organize the student blogs. So if I click here on student blogs, I can go ahead and create a new student blog by adding students. I create a username. So for hints for username for teachers, you may want to have it be maybe like the first 3 letters of each student's name, or maybe their first name. Or you can use you can add a user email, that's optional, and then the password. Note to instructors or anybody using this, you do want to create a separate spreadsheet to monitor and to keep track of username and password because it can become sort of unwieldy. And so you want to make sure you're keeping track of that, as well as the actual blog URL, because this will be for students' actual blog. And then you would go ahead and create blogs. The other thing is I can go ahead and add student users. So we're going to come back here. And this is where I would go ahead and add students. Their email or username, again with the student name. You're not going to want to put both names, maybe the first 3 letters, like I said, or the first name. And the reason why you want to have their names is because when their posts pop up for you to moderate, you're going to know who it's coming from. So you do want to sort of have some indication on their name and want to keep track of that. Back up to my class. Oh, sorry. I can come here to invite students. That's another way. I can go ahead and create an invite code. I can look at what kind of role they are. Right now, they're student, they're subscriber, contributor. I can choose from these different roles. Right now, they're a student, and I can add a new invite code. Now, this code right here, I'd want to copy and paste and send out to students for them to be able to access and to contribute on this actual blog. Okay, there could be other users. So for example, I might want to have parents or maybe the larger school community. Or again, if this is a project-based blog, I might want to actually include maybe some of the community partners, maybe the scientists or the cultural practitioners in on this blog as well. So I can go ahead and add them as new users here. Their email, their subscribers, so they would be a subscriber or a contributor. They could do that as well. And then I would go ahead and add them as a new user. So these would be all the people that would be able to access and see this. Now we want to look at sort of the fun stuff around the actual blog, what it looks like. And so we come here to appearance. We can choose from the themes. I'm just going to go through this really quickly for you so it can get very involved. So let's just pick this custom theme. As you can see, you can go through here and just sort of like pick different images. You can just sort of make this your own. Background image, menus, what you want to include, create a new menu. You can create a new menu name. Now, the menu is all of the items that would be posted here on the side. Okay, so just really, it gives you a lot of ability to customize your actual blog. Okay, so I wanted to show you, the other thing I want to show you is an example of an EduBlog that's out there. This is it's called Join the Adventure. It's actually a French immersion classroom. And so you can sort of see how they created. Here are their menu, blog guidelines, how to comment, thought box, rank site. So all of these different areas to get into, a lot of great things with students, articles. Again, just a really cool way to both get your students' comments shared with families, thought boxes, learning sites. The other great thing about EduBlog is it has amazing free courses. And so you can sort of get into how to do this and how to get your students involved. As you can see with EduBlog, it's not just about the blog. There's a lot of learning that happens off blog. So both like with scheduling, with content development, with being able to select pictures, all of these great other skills that students build. So that's EduBlog. Hey, Tracy, any ideas on how EduBlog can create effective interaction?
Yeah, it seems like given that blogs are something that's usually shared with others, that others are it's something that others might read. It seems like that the element of community cohesion for fostering effective interactions, helping students to understand, maybe the norms or how we write when we're writing for other audiences who could read this. So understanding sort of those norms and processes, but also the idea of interaction intensity. Blogging could serve as a venue to make other personal connections and foster interactions amongst your students.
Awesome. Yeah. It's again, EduBlog is just blogging just provides just a wide range of learning opportunities and skill development. Thanks, Tracy. The next we're going to get into is podcasts. I love a good podcast. I think all of the learning that students are creating and learning, a podcast is an awesome demonstration of their mastery of content. So the actual tool we're going to be looking at is Spreaker. It allows you to create podcasts and to share with an authentic audience. It allows you to work individually or as a team. And then also it allows, again, it's a demonstration, a showcase of knowledge on a variety of topics. And so it's, I've seen some blogs out there that are just sort of like just very specific, but you could look at, again, as a project group. So if you were maybe my living lo'i, my lo'i is a taro field in Hawaiian, but my living lo'i project, they might actually want to create a podcast about working with taro in the traditional way and be able to provide their learning on a podcast. And so let's go check out Spreaker. Again, the free version. It does have more fancier tools in the paid version, but right now we're just looking at the free. So you can get the version online and go ahead again and create your own account and go ahead and create your own podcast by clicking on this plus, create that title, what language, what kind of category it is. You can select from all these different categories. You can add a picture. We're not going to upgrade. You can make it private. Again, it can't be listened to by anyone. And you can also limit access. Now, you don't need the fancy microphones and the fancy lighting and buy all of those extra. What you can do is download the app on your phone. And so I'm going to stop sharing so I can show you the app on my phone. Okay, hi everybody. So here is, I don't know if you can see right down the bottom is a record. I'm going to press on the app. So this is what Spreaker on your phone looks like. It's again, free app. I want to go here, right down here is record. When I press record, I get the option of whether I want to do it live or recorded. For students, we probably want to record, just as, and particularly when we're starting at the beginning. And so you can go ahead and press record. So when you press record, all of these really fun tools come up. So I can be saying like, welcome to the student engagement podcast, where our first guest is Tracy. And I could go ahead and put on, I don't know if you can hear that, but clapping, or if I want drama, I can make sound effects. Also, if you have students that are maybe musically inclined, they can go ahead and create their own, the intro, the music intro to the actual podcast. Once we finish recording, we come up here to the pause and then end. And we can listen to it again if we'd like, and we can actually edit if we want. And then once that's finished, we can save that and actually upload it to our screen. And so let's go take a look at what that looks like uploaded. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to go back to my podcast. And so I can see my podcast right here. And here are all the episodes that I uploaded. Welcome to our student engagement podcast. Our first guest is Tracy. Welcome, Tracy. Thank you for joining us. Tracy gets a standing our student engagement podcast. Tracy gets a standing ovation on that one. And so, again, you can see podcasts. You know when somebody creates a podcast that it's just not talking, off the cuff. It's very planned. A lot of writing and editing goes into it. Interviewing practitioners or elders. Just a really great tool to sort of dive into the content and for students to be able to demonstrate content and become actually experts in their field. That's podcasting. What do you think, Tracy?
I love this tool, and thank you for the for the clap that give me a little boost for the afternoon. So like similar to the EduBlog, I think defining those norms for interaction to really perhaps even more so because it's a verbal conversation, could be even defining those norms for interaction to uphold the community cohesion element of effective interactions. Providing, depending on the project and what students are doing with their podcast, it might also be another opportunity to interact with others by collaborating with other peers or maybe family members or community members even. So that makes me think really of the importance of affective association being really important, modeling those appropriate interactions that might be important for interviewing or responding to questions and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like tools out there to help you be able to organize, podcast, student-led podcasts, and even content and curriculum. And so there's a world of information out there, and some kids might really get into it. They might have a knack for podcasting. So we've kind of covered, some tools, the book creator, the EduBlog, and the Spreaker are some different options you can use and provide to students for them to demonstrate their learning. And so now we're going to get into the area of choice around assessments. And so again, a very easy tool. I know a lot of you are using Google Classroom, and so trying to stay within the Googleverse, we might want to look at Google Sites to create a digital portfolio for student work. It's a great place for students to post their selected pieces that highlight the demonstration of their work for feedback from their own self, peers, maybe an authentic audience, and instructor. And it connects to Google Classroom. So let's go take a look at that. So where is Google Sites? So again, I'm going to come up to my trusty Chrome or Google Waffle. Where I want to go is into Drive. Excuse me. And when on the left-hand side, I want to click on the New button. And I click on More, and then I can see this sort of secondary menu, and there is Google Sites. So let's go to Google Sites. Okay, so this is where you can, a student can go ahead and create their digital portfolio. For younger learners, excuse me, you might want to be more prescriptive. You might actually want to come up with a template and share that out on your Google Classroom. For older learners, it might be you might want to put like requirements that need to be in there, but allow them to be more creative. So this is I would create my page. Okay. You can see here, I can look at different things that I might want to insert. I want to insert a text box, so that goes below. I can go ahead and move this up and down if I'd like. I can actually, again, connect to Google Drive here. I'm being able to access any content that may be already here and student work that's already there. I can embed information, and so I could take that the book creator that I had, and I could go ahead and embed that as well. You can see I could choose from different layouts, and so maybe in this area I'd like to have maybe my language arts uh, work and maybe my math work. I could go ahead and create that. Also, you might want to organize the different content areas around pages. And so to add a page, you can see I just have home for now. I want to add a page and I want to go ahead and create this is the project that I was in. And so you can see here, again, much like a website or even the EduBlog, the menu includes the different pages here at the top. Also, students can pick themes if you want to provide them some choice. Again, more choice. If I scroll down here, I could actually, as a teacher, go in and create a form that might be the rubric that of different work that they would be displaying. So maybe for the Living Low Eline project, I would have a rubric that I could go ahead and use as I reviewed this actual page and the student work. I can also include charts, a YouTube video. Maybe they've created a YouTube video. Also, like if they created a virtual field trip or a presentation, that can all be embedded here. Also, we can come here and see who I want to share this with. I can connect this back to my parents. This might be a really great tool, the digital portfolios, particularly for high school students, as a place to, if they're working with maybe like an authentic audience and experts, maybe practitioners or scientists, or maybe they're working with someone at the university on poetry writing, to actually be able to collect the feedback from those people, collect letters of recommendations, and actually to build this portfolio over their 4 years in high school, as a place that they can put their work there, as well as all of this other information that they could use for applying for colleges or applying for mentorships or internships and also for scholarships. A really great one-stop shop for students to be able to house their best work, as well as the feedback and connection from experts in fields of study and letters of recommendation. But I'm not saying that this couldn't be used for younger learners, but maybe thinking in terms of high school as being a 4-year project that they would work on and keep and maintain throughout their 4 years. As you can see, this could easily be a blog as well. So again, if you want to stay in the Googleverse, you could use the Google Sites to do the same work that you would do in EduBlog. And so that's really Google Sites. Any thoughts on from Tracy on that?
Yeah, I think this may be even more so than some of the others, but all of these tools are really a great way for students to demonstrate their knowledge and experience. But this example connected to a choice in assessments, they've seen especially tightly coupled with that element of effective interactions.
Yeah. So sorry, I was going in between screens, so I didn't have the chat up. Or are there any questions that we want to take now, Tracy? Mm, okay. No, I don't see that. Okay, so we're moving on. So let's move on to reflection. And so in the chat, if you could maybe indicate one way that you can foster effective interactions for student engagement. You can go ahead and put that in the chat. And as you're putting that in the chat, the other area that we would like to get some of your thoughts and reflection on is one way that you could incorporate choice into activities and projects. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything in the chat, so I'll just offer my 2 cents. One of the ways I think that you can foster interaction, again, Tracy gave some really great ideas, but the one that really stuck out to me again was around creating that community and creating community cohesion, getting students to maybe utilize an online tool or Zoom or chat to be able to create expectations and behavior expectations and get students to agree upon that in order to create really cohesive community. The other way maybe around incorporating choice is when you go ahead and put maybe an assignment together or a project to already sort of think through some of the choices that you'd like to share with students, and also to create a menu of choices. Oh, cool. Yeah, Patricia, the speaker, that would be a really great podcast. I mean, a really great tool to create podcasts for students. Okay, great. Please continue to think about this and put this in the chat. Get to know students so they feel you care. Yeah, yes. I really think instructors and teachers do that live anyways, but we need to be thinking consciously about how to do that online. Bookmaking and recording is a great idea. Yeah, and it's really again, you saw that the book creator is a really easy tool to use, and you'll actually be creating a library, and particularly with Native people, you know, there's not a lot of books out there that reflect our experience and our language, and so you're actually creating content. We keep seeing that students want to learn how to deal with real life issues such as budgeting. Yep. Yep. Yeah. I agree, Rebecca. You know, developing plans, all of the blogs and the speaker all really uh, allow for students to plan and think through what it takes to actually create those products. Yeah. Great. Thank you again for your reflection. Keep going with your reflection. I'm going to move on. Again, we have the distance learning Padlet. It is a place where you can connect to provide both your feedback on maybe additional tools you'd like to look into, or maybe, you know, if you really like the speaker idea, maybe we could do one just on how to create podcasts, both from the curriculum side as well as the technical side, which would be great. Um, you can ask to go a little deeper into some of these tools. The other thing is, if you actually go ahead and create an EduBlog or a book and get permission and it's okay, we would love for you to share those products that you're created that you kind of got an idea about from these distance learning sessions. We'd love to see and share the work, and even something that maybe you tried. So maybe you did wanted to do a podcast, and maybe it didn't turn out so well. Like sharing the lessons learned is just as valuable as sharing the triumphs. It really helps that we don't all have to recreate the wheel. And so I would really love to get that as well. So the distance learning Padlet is where you would go to share that. And so we're rounding up our time. And so if you could, a poll will be popping up on whether or not this was a beneficial webinar for your program. Um, Additionally, there will be a survey link that will be included in that. There it goes. We would love for you to take, 3 to 5 minutes to complete the survey. I can't express to you enough how much those surveys matter to us and how they help us to improve our delivery each time and to address your needs. So really want to encourage you to take some time to do that. Thank you
Oh,
for, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Alani, since we have just a minute or two remaining, while folks are filling out that survey, that in session poll, there was a question. Oh, and I see there maybe it's already been answered. It's already been answered, but the question was about. I think it was about recording the podcasts. How do you
Mhm.
access them, and can they be shared with faculty or grade or high schools in their area?
Yep. Yes and yes. And thanks, Rebecca, but there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot. um, but yes, you can share that. I think there's the link. So you can go ahead and see the recording. It does take a little bit to get this recording up. Um, I think at the most, it takes maybe 3 days at the most. But it's you can go ahead and share that. That's for you folks to use, and really want to encourage that. Thanks, Rebecca. Okay, looks like 9 out of 12 of us, so 75% of us voted in the end of session poll. I just one last nag on, remember to please go into that link and connect into the survey and provide your feedback. Okay, talking about Padlet and sharing the amazing things that you've been doing. On June 1st, we're going to have a virtual share fair. So Tracy and I will be reaching out to some of you, and I hope you also come ready to share maybe some of the things you've actually utilized from the series of distance learning, and would like to share. Again, not, it doesn't have to be, all the shiny bells and whistles. It could also be some of the things, hey, Olani, you said like try the virtual field trip on Google Earth, and boy, that was kind of crazy. And this was how were some of our challenges. That's important information for us. And it'll help your peers sort of not have to go through and learn from sort of your challenges. And so I really want to encourage you to both participate as well as to share there. And that's coming up again on June 1st. Where's my cursor? Also, we will have your office hours, May 27th. The talking circles are coming up. And so NAL is May 27th. You can see STEP June 9th. A demo looks like we're going to be putting that in. And then, I think that's also June 9th. Actually, it comes right after NYCP. Never mind, it'll be coming to be announced. And then the June one is on the 12th for the PD. And then we're going to be, after the June 1st virtual fair share, we're going to be taking a break on distance learning. And we're going to be having a series on logic models and data-driven decision-making. Again, from June 8th through June 22nd, the same time, same place. I really want to encourage you. This is going to be really helpful, not just in your daily working, but also as you are gearing up to also apply for other grants and look at the sustainability of your program. Again, if you have any questions, here is your contact information for OIE, your program people, as well as your technical assistance team. We want to make sure that when you reach out for questions, include your PR number. That starts with the letter S. And so you want to make sure you're putting the right PR number. Some of you have multiple grants. Make sure you are putting the correct PR number for the actual questions connected to the questions. Again, thank you today. Tracy, any last words, thoughts?
Great sharing today in the chat and verbally as well. So thank you all for making time from your busy days to join us.
Okay, oh, good. I see June 10th for the demo talking circle. So put that on, make sure it's on your calendar. Again, thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day or evening and afternoon. Have a great week. Aloha.